Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Elliot Voris. I'm a senior developer advocate at the Stellar Development Foundation, and I am so pumped getting ready for this Mexico hackathon with all of you. And I am so excited to see you all build some really amazing real world ready apps. And for many of your customers, that will involve some kind of method of getting value on chain. And so we've built this regional starter pack to kind of kickstart that effort for you and make it, fingers crossed, as easy as possible to make that happen. Like if there are 50 builders or 100 builders that are all trying to solve that same problem, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make everybody reinvent that single wheel, right? So we've got a baseline ready for you to start building. But before we get into that baseline, there's a couple of things that we got to do, and I want to make sure that gets understood first. So here's what we're going to cover. First, a little bit of conceptual background, kind of knowledge that will help define some terms that you guys will need to know as we talk about other things. Second, we've got our friends from Etherfuse here today that will be able to tell you more about what they offer and why they're working in Mexico and kind of what makes them a unique anchor in the Mexico financial ecosystem. Then we're going to take a closer look at how this regional starter pack kind of works and how you can use it and different things it may provide for you. We'll walk through a little bit of code and then we'll kind of wrap up and leave some time for questions at the end. So with all of that said, let's get some background information out of the way. First, an anchor is sort of the stellar universe way of describing on and off ramp services for the network. An anchor allows you to take value, either cash or a bank account, and bring it into the Stellar network, onto the blockchain, or take that value off of the network and put it into your bank account or take it as cash in your hand. Now, to facilitate that, there are some SEP standards. SEP stands for Stellar Ecosystem Proposal, Stellar Ecosystem Proposal, and it's a kind of predictable interface that is designed to streamline interactions between your anchor and another anchor. So you'll see a lot of times people discussing anchors might talk about if they are SEP compatible or SEP compliant or not. That's kind of what they're talking about. Do they align with these standards and these known methods of communicating with anchors, or do they have their own custom API? And lastly, payment rails get thrown around a lot. And it's basically a local means of transferring money or value. Sometimes that's cash or card payments. Other times it's kind of bank account centric, like SPEI in Mexico or ACH in the US, SEPA in Europe, PIX, Brazil. Like those kinds of payment methods are what we talk about, or what we mean when we talk about payment rails. So an anchor is the service that kind of bridges the gap, sometimes through SEP standards, sometimes through their own custom API, and they bridge that gap that allows you to move funds to and from the blockchain with those payment rails. Now, we've got our friends from Etherfuse here, and we've invited them to this live stream to share a little bit about what they offer. Etherfuse, among other things, provides anchor services for Mexico, and I'm going to turn it over to them, and they can tell you all about it. So, Eric, Jordan, go ahead.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. We're really looking forward to the upcoming event. As Elliot said, I'm Eric. I got Jordan here with me as well. We just wanted to kind of take a short moment to kind of explain what is Etherfuse, what do we do, why are we worth looking at if you are looking to do these payment rails that Elliot's talking about in Mexico.
Yeah, so again, I'm Jordan. The Etherfuse prospect is kind of, we want to not just provide stable coins, but wrap government securities. And so we wrap Mexican CETES. We also have a product in Brazil. We have some actually in Europe, in the US. And the idea is that we eventually want to have as many government-backed securities as possible. We recently just opened up one in Korea. And then dovetailing with that is the idea that we're, for instance, integrated with SPAY in Mexico. And so you can then on-ramp funds directly into these tokenized real-world assets and either build your own stable coins on top of ours and capture that yield, or leverage the yield wherever you are. We also think that because of these unique relationships, we're going to be able to bring FX on-chain. And so you'll be able to swap for almost no basis points between like a Brazilian-based fiat stablecoin versus a Mexican peso. And so the Anchor protocol, especially here on Stellar, will allow us to do that in a way that normalizes these on-ramps and provides people value in their native currencies, or a way to hedge against their currency if maybe you're liking how the peso looks as opposed to the dollar. Whatever that reason or use case is, we want to make that easy and inject true growth from those government-backed securities. So that way your money just goes up and you don't have to worry about it.
That's amazing. And I will say that the experience I've had building against your platform and kind of figuring out how the interactions work with Etherfuse has been fantastic, if I can just say. Both of you in particular have been incredibly responsive to my insane questions at all hours of the day. And you've been so helpful and tremendously just responsive, and have been very willing to hear feedback and provide support. And so thank you on a personal level, but also highly recommend working with these Etherfuse guys. They are great people and they know exactly what they're doing. For sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, it's really fun. We're passionate about the project. The exposure that we can give to these Latin American countries is awesome, because it's an underserved demographic for sure. And a lot of times people are really focused on US-based assets, but there's a lot of other people out there. And so we are very passionate. If you have questions, usually we'll say, hey, we think here's the answer, but let me go and update the docs for you really quick as well. So that way not everybody else has to ask that same question. So those docs, for sure, if you're looking to integrate, is a place to go first, but then come and ask us directly, because we're always happy to help out.
I've found that to be exactly the case. Every time I do get an answer from you and then eventually find my way back at the docs on that exact page, I find that you have updated it without even, you don't even go out of your way to brag about it. It's fantastic. If you guys, if the audience has any questions for Etherfuse, feel free to drop them in the chat or the thread. Is that what they do on Twitter or X these days? I don't know what to call anything. I'm an old guy. But reach out and ask questions. We've got some excellent expertise here with us, so feel free to shoot your questions out there and we can get to them in the course of this presentation. Any other things, Jordan, Eric, before we kind of plow ahead?
No, nothing for me.
Excellent. In that case, we will get into this resource that we've created for you. So as you begin building your regionally relevant, real-world ready application on the Stellar network, there's a good chance your users need to use some kind of anchor service or on and off-ramp service to get that value or funds on chain. And so we've set up this sort of starter pack to help make that as easy as possible for you. So what I call the regional starter pack is available at, ready for a long URL, regional-starter-pack.vercel.app. You can get there by scanning the QR code in the video right now if you want. And this starter pack is really three things. It's first a resource to help you find anchors in a region and figure out what services they may offer. So I'm actually going to take us out of the slideshow and jump right to the regional starter pack. So it is a toolkit that kind of assembles a lot of information for developers, for builders, to know what anchors exist. So right now, all of the region we're focusing on at the moment is Mexico. So all of the anchors that we are highlighting are available in Mexico, and that's kind of where we've built our integration to start with. As the year progresses and we kind of target more and more geographies, this section will expand as well as this, and it will become more kind of intertwined, is how I envision it, that different anchors support multiple regions and multiple regions are supported by various anchors. But for now, we can kind of like see on this Mexico page that the payment rails our various anchors support are all SPEI or SPEI, which is how I read it in my head. And I'm glad to hear somebody else confirm my own silly internal monologue. But all the anchors we've implemented and integrated with in this application are running through SPEI payment rails. And they all have different assets available. So Etherfuse has their CETES stable bond, USDC coin from Circle, of course, and BlindPay kind of issues their own testnet token called USDB. So in the Mexico enabled ramps, these particular tokens are the ones that are available, is kind of how this works. A little bit more information about the available anchors in this region, what their on or off ramp capabilities are, if they require KYC, what payment rails, what tokens, those kinds of things. And if we click on this view details button for Etherfuse in particular, we've got a couple of different things. Known issues are thrown out there. If myself or one of the other internal people at the foundation have come across difficult tripping points or something like that, we'll try to document them here, what tokens are available through this particular anchor. Again, for now, everything's in Mexico, but the supported regions, what currency in that region they take, payment rails, what capabilities on or off or both this anchor provides. And then down here is an integration flow. And so we have this for each of these, Alfred Pay, BlindPay. Sort of as a developer, what do you need to know before you get started? In this case, you have to sign up, create an organization, get your API keys, and your developer account has to go through some KYC process or KYB, depending on kind of how you're structured prior to mainnet launch to use Etherfuse as an anchor. But then we've got this sort of like integration flow that you're going to have to facilitate for your users. So if your user is trying to on-ramp, you're going to have to create a customer, complete KYC through an iframe, get a quote, create an on-ramp order, transfer that through a bank account. Obviously, we're simulating that in the testnet or sandbox environment, and then finally receive your tokens in the user's wallet. And for off-ramp, you've got this similar but varying process. And this is kind of outlined for you as the developer to know, if I'm going to integrate with Etherfuse, I'm going to need to have this function covered, this functionality, and be ready to pass your user along these various steps. So back to the presentation, the regional starter pack is kind of a resource to help you find details about these anchors that are operating on the network in Mexico in particular at the moment, but more regions will arise as time goes on. Second, it's also an example project that kind of works as a demo that we've integrated as much functionality within the regional starter pack. We've integrated as much functionality with the anchors as we can, as they'll allow in the sandbox. And you can actually walk through those steps. So I'm going to actually try on-ramp. I'm going to connect Freighter, and it probably shows up and you can't really see it. It's a pop-up window, yeah. But I'm connected now to this wallet, and I'm going to try and on-ramp with Etherfuse right here, right now. So we're going to continue. I'm not going to provide an email address, and I'm going to open the verification tab, and we're going to verify our identity. And the Etherfuse guys have gone above and beyond, providing even sandbox credentials and bank account information for us. So I'm just going to walk through all these steps really quick. I'm going to say yes to all of the complicated legal stuff that I should be reading. And I'm going to continue in the Plaid sandbox mode. And all of this sandbox information is what we will enter here, because we don't want to give our real name in sandbox mode. So we're going to do the phone number is this. And January 18th, 1975. And we're going to get our SMS code. Oh, good. Leslie Knope is already in the system, and we can confirm and continue. Eric, did you guys pick out Leslie Knope as sort of the sandbox user, or was that already done for you?
We did not. That is a Plaid special for you. So you can thank Plaid for that.
It's good stuff. So now I am actually on my phone capturing some pictures that I will use, just any old picture, pretending like it's my driver's license, and uploading them, and it's going to scan them and verify.
And again, this is so Plaid's sandbox flow. You just can take a picture of your hand for all it cares. It pretends to go ahead and verify these pictures when it doesn't really. So you don't have to. Please don't send us all of your personal information in Sandbox and then be concerned about us holding it. You can wait till production for that if you want to do that.
Yes. Proceed, and now I'm going to accept the customer agreement as Leslie Knope. Leslie Knope at
and you can again here Eric already put some sweat into this to make sure you can put in whatever name you want and have it kind of customized to you if you want that, but you can keep the theme going.
You can put in whatever name you want here on this page.
Is the same thing true for the KERP and RFC fields?
Yeah, I think it's going to match some regex against the length of the identifier, but it'll kind of tell you what that is if you put in the wrong one. So
gotcha.
You can fire and retry.
And she is the regional, deputy, that's what it's called. Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation. My daughter's been getting into the show, and she.
Fun. I won't spoil the last season, but her title changes. I'll just say that.
Yeah. All right, we are verified identity, and we have this pre-filled sandbox information, and we'll just add a label to that, and we'll save it, and we are now completed the onboarding process. So I'm going to close this tab that popped up. I'm going to refresh my KYC status, and I am good to go. Add a trust line for the CTES asset, which again doesn't display in my screen sharing. Sorry for that. But it's ready, and we'll say I'm going to onboard 1,000 Mexican pesos, which gets me 800, almost 900 CTES bonds. And I'm going to confirm, and awesome. I get a clave. Is that the right way to pronounce that? I'm never sure. I get a bank account basically that I would deposit into if this were a real mainnet application, but I'm going to click this simulate fiat received button, and my backend is going to send a request to the Etherfuse API to simulate that bank transfer has taken place. And my application is just polling every few seconds to the Etherfuse API to see if the transaction has gone through yet or not. But they also have a very robust set of webhooks that you can opt to set up for yours. Awesome. I've now got in my wallet 886.13 CTES. I'm a rich man. And so the same thing can be done for off-ramps. The same thing can be done for Alfred Pay or Blind Pay, whatever anchors are here. We've got a demo interaction that you can use to sort of, as a developer, understand more about what process your users might need to go through. So back at our presentation, it's a resource to help you find information about available anchors in a region, and it's an example project using those anchors as a working demo. And finally, it's a code library with all of the boring work done for you in a portable way that makes it easy to drop into a React project or a Next.js project or whatever use case you might have. As long as it's TypeScript, we've got you covered for interacting with these anchors. So let's actually see if we can switch which sharing we're doing. I'm going to try and stop this screen, and Teague might have to step in and tell me what I need to do. Let's see, this one. Yes, share. Excellent. Okay, so this is available. If you go to that regional starter pack, we'll have links for all this stuff at the end. If you go to that regional starter pack site, in the footer is view source code, and it takes you to the GitHub repo where you can get all of this. But inside the source lib anchors directory lives this types file. And that is kind of the bread and butter for how we've defined this anchor interface. We do have SEP compatible modules for any SEP interactions that may take place between an anchor and your application. But what we've found is that many anchors aren't actually implementing the SEP standards, or not all of them. And so we, rather than trying to live in an ideal world where everybody is fully interoperable, we kind of try to take the approach of taking the anchors at face value in a way, and using what they provide as their API and sort of creating wrappers and functionality around that. So every anchor that we've implemented, BlindPay, Etherfuse, AlfredPay, has this common anchor interface, some like metadata about what that anchor is called, what capabilities it supports, what tokens it supports, Rails, that kind of stuff. And all of this is fully documented and commented, hopefully for ease of development. And I will say that if you are a developer using Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT to develop, or Cursor, whatever model, I've had fantastic experience with Claude in particular, can understand and pull out these portable libraries in a really productive way, and really doesn't have much problems with implementing this for the different anchors. So the anchor interface includes information or functions for creating customers, getting customer information, quote, foreign exchange quotes, creating on-ramp transactions, fetching those transactions, getting a fiat account set up, getting those that fiat account information for a user, creating off-ramp transactions, getting those transactions, the kind of bread and butter of customer creation, bank account information, token information that might get pulled, quotes, and KYC stuff. That's really kind of the core of it. And so every anchor client, and we'll dive into Etherfuses here in a second, will provide these functions, as well as any like additional ones that they may offer that is not relevant to other anchors. So if we jump into our anchor interface for the Etherfuse client, we've got create customer, and it's going to be fully typed input, fully typed output. It'll do some checking to make sure that we have a public key and that it's a valid public key provided. And then it'll set up our customer ID and bank account ID and make a request to the API's endpoint. So it's, in a way, it's kind of like an open API wrapper, right? That this client is facilitating the requests and responses to and from the anchor's interface. And we are just kind of, we've got a front end that calls these as necessary. Now, I will say, for all of the anchors that we've tested and that we've built integrations for, each one of them does require some kind of authentication header or something on the request. And those are not usually meant to be client-side exposed. So like in your front-end code, you wouldn't necessarily want to expose your API secrets to the whole world. So my application, this regional starter pack that we were just demoing, it uses its own kind of API endpoints to facilitate those calls. So the front end calls my API backend, which then calls this Etherfuse client create customer function. And then this is then executed on the server, where that API token and secret can be safeguarded. So we've got our Etherfuse specific functionality that's implemented then and makes sure that if we're trying to create a customer, the customer doesn't already exist. And if it does exist, we're trying to fetch information from the API and store that in our, it's not a database for this particular application because that's a little bit overkill for like a demo example kind of thing. But it is using like local storage in the browser for like a simulated kind of keeps track of your bank account ID, customer ID for different anchors and different clients, different anchor clients that we've implemented.
Well, and I love this concept too, because with all these different, the whole point of Anchor is that you can set it up once and then it works no matter where you go, right? And so, and that's fantastic. And you've got some organizations like ours that are still building out all that functionality and haven't, reached that level yet. And so these, this regional starter pack does a great job of bridging that. And in a sense, honestly, simplifying our product offering to narrow it just specifically into the Anchor protocol, so that way users can come in and use it and see if the product is a good fit for them or not. And so therefore, you can go from kind of 0 to 60 on all of these, our product, but any of these other ones in the regional starter pack, and decide, is this a good fit for your users? Is there traction? And then if you want to increase your kind of API interactions and get into more of those power features, then you can, but it gets you into those tokens in these regional areas really fast. And I think it's a really great solution to be able to use that with the Anchor protocol, but especially this regional starter pack work that Elliott's been working with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that is exactly kind of like the ideal world of every anchor everywhere is fully SEP compatible. That sometimes just can't happen for whatever reason. Maybe there's like maybe an anchor is just getting traction started, or maybe they're a brand new startup, or maybe they're not entirely sure that they want to build on Stellar, but want to kind of dip their toes in it, and they don't have the time to fully invest in a fully compliant SEP anchor setup. And we found that that was the case. So if we even look in my application, everybody, is a SvelteKit application. I am sorry about that to all the React bros out there. It just doesn't make sense with my brain. I can't get it to work. But the way that SvelteKit works is I've got this API route. So it's like regionalstarterpack.com/API/anchor. And then provider is kind of a wildcard, a path parameter kind of thing. And if we put a customer or post a customer to this endpoint, the provider being in brackets here just means like this will be essentially useful for any of these API clients or anchor clients that we've set up, BlindPay, AlphaPay, Etherfuse. It's just going to create the anchor client here, whatever that anchor provider is in this instance, and then await anchor.create customer. So we're sort of understanding that some anchors have different APIs. Some are SEP compatible, some are not. And so let's make this wrapper so that you can, I like your 0 to 60 metaphor, Jordan, that you don't want to waste time figuring out all the intricacies of an anchor just to try it out, just to test it out and see, does this meet my needs? So we can create this kind of bootstrapped state for you. And
for sure. And in even the SEP, and you can correct me, right? Because we're still trying to get fully compliant on our side, but the SEP protocol isn't overly specific in terms of what KYC data and what format. And so even if you were to be fully SEP compatible and compliant, there is still this problem of what KYC data does each provider require. And so integrating with the regional starter pack has taken a lot of that effort out in terms of having strongly typed conventions there that you can just lift from and have confidence that you're going to be able to provide all those data fields in the right places.
Yeah. And to that point, there are many different SEP standards. So there's one for sharing a TOML file that tells clients or customers or applications where to find like a transfer endpoint, where to find an authentication endpoint, where to find this kind of transfer endpoint. And you can kind of pick and choose, but there are many different SEPs. One of them is KYC, SEP 9 or 12, I believe. And it has like, it can provide for a standardized like names for KYC fields, but it doesn't really standardize which fields are required, which fields are optional, because my assumption has always been an anchor operating in Mexico versus England would have different kind of KYC requirements. So while the names are consistent through that particular SEP standard, the requirements may not be. So yeah, we've strongly typed and put these functions into this starter pack for you, so you don't have to figure that out. And you can kind of, it's almost like a simulated SEP standard that these anchors aren't SEP compatible, but we kind of made a API to make it sort of work. Yeah. So this API is then what gets called by my front end, and it kind of abstracts away the differences in these different anchor clients. Like if we go back to create customer here, as far as these three anchors, Etherfuse, BlindPay, AlphaPay, you're the only one that requires a public key. So here in your specific client, we make sure that the input's public key is available and valid. We don't have to make that check in the other ones. But you call create customer just the same, regardless of any anchor that you may be using. Similar with customer ID and bank account ID. Yours was the first service I had interacted with where the developer is responsible for creating and keeping track of what the customer ID and bank account ID is. And so that was a sticking point for me and some of my coworkers. But this is the only anchor client here that will end up creating those ID numbers and passing them along.
Right, and that was kind of what I was getting to. We have these kind of power features that are built out for different use cases and people who, where it would make sense for them, it doesn't make sense for everybody, right? And so your normalizing of those interfaces, I think, is really helpful to the community. I think it's a great feature set. Nice,
appreciate you saying that. Each of these anchor clients has a pretty well written README that is intended to kind of get you or your LLM on kind of get your understanding speed run in a way. Gives you kind of the integration flow, sort of the content of that page that I was showing earlier, but just in the repo. The idea was I want to make this as easy as possible for a person to approach and understand and jump off, get off the ground, hit the ground running. That's the metaphor that I was looking for. So yeah, I know there's so many different things we could look at in this code. We tried to also include the fee structure, which I could surface this better on the site itself, because this is one of the strong points, I think, of Etherfuse, if I'm not mistaken, that your fee is quite a bit lower than most other ramps I've experimented with. It's 20 basis points, so like 0.2%. Is that the right way to? Yeah.
And 20 would be 0.2%. So, but yeah, so 100 basis points is 1%. So if that kind of helps that mental model, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really low. And honestly, that's because I think we're like one of the only assets that you're building on that offers yield, right? And so we're able to leverage that yield to internally offset those expenses of on-ramping your funds. And so that's kind of honestly, that yield is our secret sauce, because it allows us to do a lot of things cheaper. So we're not so much worried about, all these different things, making money off of you this way and that way. We want you to use the product, and that benefits us because, we all see that yield, and that rising tide lifts all boats.
For sure. So is I think the yield bearing stable bonds is a really like wonderful really means of getting users on ramped onto the network. A lot of the time, kind of we phrase it like cash to DeFi in this sense of you can take your money, put it on chain, and put it to work. But in this case, we are taking our money, putting it on chain, and it is already starting to work. Like the minute we put it on chain, we're earning yield on that CETES bond or the US Treasury bond or whatever the case is. And then we can even do further things with that token, but all the while it is appreciating in value as it exists on the network or as the bond has been issued. Is that the right way to describe?
Yeah, so we go ahead, we make sure we kind of have attestations. We always have these bonds purchased. Sometimes we purchase additional ones because we know that people are going to want to come in and like immediately get those. Sometimes you'll want to buy enough that we don't have enough to give it to you all right away, and so we'll make you kind of wait till we get some more. But that way we have all of these real world assets backing that. And because of that, it kind of allows us to on-ramp these funds quickly. And of course, when you come in, if you wanted to just leave your money in pesos in your bank account, then maybe you don't need it on Stellar, right? But you're going to want to come in, you're going to want to expose yourself to different things. You're going to want some XLM, you're going to want some, stuff. But if you're still worried about at the end of the day, am I going to have my currency or is something weird going to swing, right? If I on-ramp everything into USDC, that may or may not buy as many, whatever it might be, car payments or what. I've got fixed expenses at home. If a bus ticket is always a certain number of pesos, I want to make sure that the dollar doesn't move against me. And then suddenly, I can't buy as much. And so the CETES are nice because it allows you to feel that growth without having to worry about exposing yourself to like foreign currency exchange shifts. So, but again, we were working with one of our integrators, and he had said, "Oh wait, I can integrate directly and on-ramp directly into XLM," and the answer is yes, and that was part of those power features. And so, I would definitely encourage people who are on the call first integrate with this regional starter pack, kind of feel that out, understand that flow, and then if you want, you can either swap from there, using on-chain liquidity. In the DeFi markets, or you can use our APIs to honestly just on-ramp directly into whatever those assets are that you're curious about. So it's really powerful.
I think that's one of the incredibly unique things about Etherfuse as well, that most anchors give you maybe 2 or 3 tokens to choose from as far as depositing US dollars and getting USDC, or maybe XLM, or maybe euros, or whatever the case may be, and vice versa, off-ramping euros and getting euros in your bank account. But my understanding is with Etherfuse, I can on-ramp in my sandbox pesos and get any of your issued bonds or any exchangeable.
So when you on-ramp, we on-ramp directly, in a sense, the way it works is we on-ramp directly into CETES on Stellar, and then we can leverage DeFi to swap those into any of these other assets where there is a strict send, strict receive using those Stellar protocols. And so we will actually bundle that into the on-ramp and provide you a fee quoted. Again, this is the Anchor protocol doesn't, with the steps that we're using, you're not able to quite do that, which is why we have this kind of more feature rich, I'd say, or broader API surface. But you can have a real quote that locks in your price if you want to directly on-ramp into XLM. And so having that load 20 bips fee or 30 bips fee or whatever it might be, because again, you're going to have some slippage. You might have some different things where you're swapping that we can't control because it's DeFi. But we know at least we can get you to CETES for cheap. And then beyond there, you're going to have your natural kind of slippage. But we can bake that all into the quote ahead of time, which is really nice. So you know when you send funds, how much you're going to get into your account.
Yeah. And it's both ways that you can do that swap, right? Off and on ramp.
Correct. So with the strict protocol for Anchor, I think right now you can only do that with CETES, but we are investigating different ways. to use those standard set protocols to allow you to leverage different assets in a way that matches up with expectations on Stellar.
Excellent. Very, very cool. I think I've kind of hit like all of the code things that I wanted to share and I wanted to show. Any questions in the chat? Let me look. Good day and hello, everybody who said so. Excellent. No questions there. Anything from the Etherfuse side of things you want to see highlighted or kind of peek behind the curtains?
I will say, we have our docs. I think you posted that real quick. It's just docs.etherfuse.com is all of our developer docs for this stuff. And so if you're seeing an unusual error code, if you're seeing like something weird happen that is unexpected, feel free to look there. You can kind of go from there, or you can just go to app.etherfuse.com. That's our site. You can reach out to us. I think I've retweeted this session on Twitter, so you can reach out to me on Twitter. We're on the Stellar Discord as well. So if you've got questions, come at us. We're excited to answer those. We are trying to integrate with the ecosystem as much as possible and help everybody feel supported.
Yeah, I've got some links and resources that anybody can go to. The regional starter pack.vercel.app is kind of the long-winded home base that I'm trying to set up that maybe I'll come up with something snappier eventually. But that will have links like you mentioned. Docs.etherfuse.com is fantastic, well-written, and very comprehensive. We've got the Stellar developer documentation. You can tag any of us on Discord or Twitter, wherever. My name is Elliot Friend, most places, except for Telegram, because that was already taken, sadly. Yeah, are there any other questions that anyone has in the chat or in the comments on Twitch or Twitter or YouTube? I didn't even know we could do video on Twitter these days. That's how old I am and out of touch. Excellent, excellent. In that case, what I want to leave you all with is a question. What will you build? As you are approaching this Mexico City hackathon, as you are getting ready to build something that changes the world of those around you, what are you going to do? We've kind of done some work to try and make it as easy as possible for you to get started and get running with your application and with your tests, and trying to up-level you sooner rather than later, in a way. And we want to help you make that financial change a reality for your customers. And so what are you going to do with that? The bridge has been built, and what are you going to build on top of it? Maybe it's a point of sale system. Maybe it's like a pooled saving application, like what's that? Save Together or something like that, Pool Together. Maybe you've got some other fantastic idea in mind that solves a real problem, a real need for the people in your community. What are you going to build, and how are you going to do it? That's the question that I want to leave with all of you with. As I said before, my name's Elliot. If you have any questions, let me know, hit me up. Always happy to talk, always happy to chat. And Jordan, Eric, thank you both so much. And thank you, Etherfuse, for the incredible work you've done and for being here with us. And I think that's all I've got. Any last words?
No, I want to see, Eric and I will both be down in CDMX for the hackathon. And so we'll be down there Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And we want to come up, meet us, say hi. If you've got questions on how to use it, use it. But I want to see what you build. I'm excited for it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Same. I'm so pumped. I'm excited for the event. I grew up in Phoenix, and now I live in the Midwest. So I've been missing that Mexican food that I get. So I'm so pumped for that, maybe more than anything else. Also excited to see what people build. But it's been great talking to you guys. It's been great sharing with everybody in the audience. I think that's all I got. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.